Hey, everybody. My name is Teresa Lo. You are here with Talk with T.LO. We are a live stream on YouTube every Monday through Thursday at 3 p.m. Pacific time. This is Monday, January 4th, 2021. And we have today really awesome guests. We have the comedians and writers, Michael Damian, as well as Sophia Zolan, who's returning to the show. So we're just going to wait a moment and let them come into the room. Okay, just reading a comment from the crowd. Gianluca is saying we want this show. So yes, it is here. Hey, Sophia.
Hi.
Hey, Michael.
Woo.
Hello.
Hello.
Let's see. Sophia, start with you. What is new with you?
What's new with me? I remember you asked me this last time and I was like, oh, nothing. Oh, what is everything? But I will say, okay, I think I'm a little late to this, but have you guys been watching Bridgerton?
Oh, I tried to watch it and then I kind of stopped paying attention, but I'm going to retry.
Yeah, I feel like I kind of did the same, but then I kept seeing everybody post about it and I was like, okay, fine, I'll watch it. And whew, is it worth it? I feel like everybody talks about how much sex is on that show and like for real, it'll get you.
Okay.
It'll get you. That's worth it. It's worth it just to watch that. So I've been doing that a lot.
When you say like sex, because I know it's a Shonda Rhimes show, but it is on Netflix. Is it like HBO kind of sex or like ABC kind of sex?
Definitely maybe in between. Maybe there's a little bit less nudity than HBO. There's definitely less nudity than HBO, but there's definitely more than ABC.
Hold it. Like I am definitely gonna pay attention.
Shonda Rhimes, hire me, man. I can hype your shows up.
Okay, what about you, Michael? What is new with you?
Well, I haven't been watching Bridgerton. I've been trying to catch up with Karate Kid, which not the show yet. I'm trying to get into Cobra Kai, but I had to rewatch all the Karate Kids up until now, like almost every dude who looks like me on a podcast has been doing. But there's no sex in Karate Kid 3 because the actress was way too young and they had to rewrite all the romance out of it. It's not a good movie.
I was like, I don't remember a 3.
The girl from Teen Witch is the love interest, but she was like 15 in Karate Kid 3.
Oh, weird. Oh, I don't remember that. Yeah, I don't remember any of that.
Yeah, no. But other than that, doing comedy, writing, and trying to watch everything. I'm going to watch Bridgerton.
Now good. Yeah, I know. Sophia sold it. I was like, oh my God, I need to watch this.
I feel like because I've been like single for a while and then also like the pandemic, obviously. So I thought I was dead inside, but then I watched it and I was like, oh, never mind.
That selling point, it can revive you.
Yes.
That's good. I guess what's new with me is, so I've been seeing this guy and like a few days ago, he tested positive for COVID. And I, at the time when he told me he was tested positive, he was like really healthy. And so I didn't think it was like a big deal. And then like a day later, he started actually getting sick. And so it's like the past 3 days, he's been like super sick. And now I'm just like, oh man, COVID is so real. And like, I don't know why I didn't take it seriously when he told me he tested positive, but I'm like, oh.
Well, I think it's especially young people. We assumed, well, for a lot of it, we were told that young people couldn't get it, or that we'd be asymptomatic or have such light symptoms. But then more and more, I'm hearing people that I know have gotten it, and their symptoms are like, like I still can't taste or smell right, like after months later, and it's crazy, like the like lingering side effects that aren't as talked about. It's crazy.
No, that is interesting because I remember my sister was telling me that there's this woman we know, like a family friend, and she recovered from COVID. And then like weeks later, she had to go to the ICU for some like seizure or something like that, where it kicked in after she recovered. So I'm like, ooh.
I know. That's the thing that it's like people, I think people that are, whatever, anti-maskers and whatnot, they're like, well, look how many people recover, because like the recovery rate is like a bigger percent. But I'm like, yeah, but you don't hear about the lingering side effects. Like just because they're survived it doesn't mean they don't have things still going on,
Yeah,
that's true. What were you gonna say, Michael? Sorry.
I was gonna say, sorry. My dad had it in January before he even knew what COVID was, and luckily for my dad, my mom had like a CPAC and she gave it to him, and he was able to just like relax, pass out, and not have to wind up in the hospital. But he had like the exact same symptoms. And it was like the worst flu he ever had. But thankfully, he's alive.
Yeah, knock on wood.
That's good. Yeah. I guess my question for you guys, because I've seen this on like a lot of comedians is social media, is that even with right now with LA being so crazy, they are still wanting to go out and do mics in person. And I've even seen mics that are like indoors with no mask. And I'm kind of like, whoa. And I don't know, what are your thoughts on it? Because my thoughts are more like, at a certain point, we know it's not safe. Like I know like March, April, people weren't taking it, and I get it back then. But now at this point, it's kind of like, what? We all have by now personal stories,
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts? What about you, Sophia?
I mean, I've been to one mic, but this was like in July, just September, maybe. It was before like the recent now, and it was like it was only like 6 people were allowed. It was a backyard area. We're all distanced. They had what are they called? Like mic. They called them like mic condoms, basically like a mask for the mic. So I thought like that. I felt very safe, and they had hand sanitizer. But hearing about it now when there's a huge spike, and I didn't even know people were doing indoor and without mask. Like that's crazy to me. Because some of the people that I know who got it, this is how like contagious it is. They don't even know how they got it. So it's not like they're like, oh shit, it was that party I went to, or like it was that mic. It was like it could have been grocery shopping. Like people are like, it's outdoors, so we're safe, and I'm like, but we're not, because I know people who, like a lot of people who've gotten it who can't even trace it.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's worth it
right now. What about you, Michael? What are your thoughts?
I understand their thoughts. I was hesitant about it in the beginning because I was doing open mics, and then I found out we can't do comedy anymore. So they came back in Zoom, and I was really hesitant to do Zoom for a while, but acoustic has to become electric. So I'm like, why not? Wow. I'm just going to fade away. And it's like, basically it's the plot of the movie Walk the Line for me. And I'm just like, I gotta stick it out. But thankfully, I found like great clubs like Fourth Wall did it for a while. Now they're making pizzas. Joe Manente makes an amazing pie. And Flappers, I got heavily involved in the Flappers, and I love it. And I saw you as a host, and met great people like Paul and Josh, and it was a lot of fun. However, it's funny that other comedians online aren't really abiding by the social media guidelines, to the point where some of them, they're trying to be like Eminem and 8 Mile, where they're like, I'm not going to let a disease ruin my comedy life. So many people are hating me out here, but my comedy is real. Know what I'm saying? And then it's like, dude, we're all telling dick and boob jokes. Calm down, dude.
It's crazy because like some of the people who are meeting in person, like, they have revealed recently, one of the people who hosts a Real Person Mike, she revealed that she got COVID, and and then she was like on her like Facebook post. I don't mean to like out her, but she posted it publicly, so I guess it's okay, because she was like, oh yeah, I got COVID, but I'm gonna be doing my mic in a week, and you're just like, man.
No. Oh my
gosh. Like, well, if they're gonna post it publicly, then I don't like, they're
that's
not a surprise, but. Yeah,
it's all fun and games until the Grim Reaper gives you the light. You don't want that. I'm just saying, like, we're gonna come out of this. We're gonna come out of our comedy shelters. I hope they survive this, but we're gonna come out of our comedy shelters, and it's gonna be a great revival, hopefully.
One thing that I'm kind of excited about, I actually signed up for a comedy stand-up class online, but it's in New York. So I finally
that's interesting.
Class without going there, and I can network with like East Coast people. So I guess that's like the secret I'm going to try this year, is to take as many online, but over there.
That's like the cool thing. I mean, obviously, not to be like, the cool thing about coronavirus now, but like the one takeaway that I've had during this time is that it's kind of like taking care of the limitations we had before, which is like, again, like I did a show in South Africa, or I've done a couple of shows in South Africa that you're like, oh, I wouldn't have done this before. Like, so that in that way, it's kind of opened things up a little bit,
How did you find that?
So I do a show through Dynasty Typewriter called the Shout Out Show with my co-host Aisha Alpha and Winter Spears. And Aisha, she's performed in South Africa before, so she had this connection with this guy Mario, and Mario was doing, especially around the beginning of the pandemic, he was doing a show every single day on Instagram Live. So I did him a few times, but that was so cool to like just do, an opportunity I wouldn't have had otherwise.
it's nice to network without having to pay for the flight. Like, I feel like
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Although I do like when things open up, I'm like, I'm going to South Africa. Like now I have like a connection or whatever. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. So both of you guys are comedians, but you always also have screenwriting backgrounds. So I kind of wanted to ask you guys, what is your screenwriting background if you're willing to share it with the audience?
Sure.
Let's start with you, Michael.
Cool. I have a MFA, a Master's of Fine Arts degree from the University of Miami. And I also have a Bachelor's of Science degree from Austin Peay State University. The only people who know that college watch the movie Remember the Titans, because that's like our big claim to fame. I think one of the football players was on the football team where that got inspired. But as far as writing goes, just writing specs, and I haven't sold anything yet, but I've been mainly focused on stand-up comedy. So for like most of this pandemic. So any like screenwriting ideas that I have, I jot them down, but like stand-up is like my main focus.
That makes sense. It's very cool.
Yeah, until the pandemic's over.
What about you, Sophia?
I would say it kind of happened accidentally. I mean, I remember in high school I would write a lot, and I was always encouraged to write, but I just was like, I'm a performer, you know. So I kind of started. So I was pursuing acting initially when I moved to LA, but then I wasn't really getting anything, or like the stuff I was getting wasn't what I wanted, because this is when I realized I maybe didn't want to be an actor, because I only want to do comedy, but I was getting a lot of like serious woman, you know, like I just didn't like it. So I started to write my own stuff and put myself in them. And then I would, you know, did a lot of sketch comedy. I wrote for a CBS Diversity Showcase. And then, yeah, I started writing scripts and entering some contests. So I also haven't sold anything yet, but, you know, still working on it.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I have a background similar to Michael, but I probably have more years on it. Where like, so I got an MFA. Gosh, like I got it in 2009, and then I won a big screenwriting contest in 2010. And I've been like a finalist for almost all of the diversity programs in Hollywood. And at a certain point, like when I switched to actually started performing and doing comedy, I feel like my career just got so much better, because I always felt like it was a bridesmaid situation where I never was the bride kind of thing as a writer, where I was like always really close, but never really like could push through. And I just felt like I kind of had a little bit where it was just like worked out a little better being a performer than just a writer for me. But even with that, it was like, I've been here since 2007. So I've been in LA for just a very long time pursuing things. And so it's just a very long process.
Yeah, I've been here since, 2009, but technically I moved out here initially in 2006, and then I hated it, moved back home, then New York, then came back in 2009. So I've been here for a long time too, and I feel like people underestimate how long it takes. And also, especially when you have like lots of different, like I was like really into improv at first, then sketch, and then, you know, TV writing and stand-up and acting. So you're kind of like pursuing a bunch of things at once, where maybe if you like only committed to one, maybe, I don't know. It's just like everybody breaks differently.
Yeah. About that too, actually, the concept of just focusing on one. But I actually tried to do that and focus just on screenwriting for a few years, and it just wasn't going anywhere, where I was like, it's just not doing it. So I started to write books, and then, you know, it's almost like when I combined a bunch of different things is when things started happening for me. But yeah, like, so I don't think there's anything wrong with pursuing a bunch of stuff.
I don't need, and I'm honestly, I think it's just what you're gravitated towards. Like, I don't know, when it feels like when I started doing stand-up is when a lot of doors started opening, because you meet people. Like I met you at a stand-up show, and then you think of people for other things, and you bring people on your shows, and it just feels more organically collaborative, and it could lead to more exposure, and, you know, yada, yada, yada.
Like, how long have you guys both been doing stand-up? Like, I've been doing stand-up for 2 years. I've always liked comedy, but I only started performing for about 2 years. But I feel like doors just started to open way more doing comedy than just writing. What about you guys?
Yeah, 100%. I've always wanted to be a comedian since I was maybe 13, but I lived in the Bible Belt, where like the word open mic doesn't mean anything unless you have a guitar or a fiddle. And
did you say a flute?
Or a flute, a fiddle, whatever they call bluegrass. It's in everything. But I lived in Tennessee, and then it was like, where's your guitar, boy? And then it's like, well, I don't. I have impressions. I can vaguely do Adam Sandler. Like, it's like, who? And then I just was like, I'm just going to go to college. I'm going to write, going to do this. And I moved to Miami. And right before I moved to LA on New Year's Day in 2017, I did comedy right before I left Miami. And I'm like, I'm going to do this because I'm already meeting way more people than going to college ever set me up for. And college is a good thing. I'm not doing an anti-intellectual stick up here, but there's a lot of things that life just has to teach you that school simply cannot. And I feel all my reasoning behind that kind of brought me into stand-up, and I'm glad it did.
Well, and I think like what's an interesting thing too about, because you and I both have MFAs where I don't think they're worth it. Like if you have to pay for it, unless your MFA is free, I don't think anyone should be paying for it. Like I feel like you learn way more just doing entertainment or doing open mics than anything like what you're saying what school ever set you up for. And you pay so much for an MFA.
Yeah. And it's weird. I think maybe the only reason I got my MFA was because I went to like such a podunk university in the middle of nowhere that nobody knew. And like, well, I'm going to go to Miami. That'd be my ticket, when I should have just like borrowed money and filled up a gas tank and drove to Los Angeles.
Yeah. I got my, sorry to interrupt you. I got my bachelor's in theater, still paying those student loan bills.
Right?
But I kind of don't regret it because I just loved my college experience. And I also really felt like it was where I found myself. And like, I didn't initially want to get a theater degree. Like I was going to go for like a business degree and kind of gradually found it. I don't know. I just feel like a lot of life for me was like showing me I should have gone this comedy, or shouldn't say the word should, that I was being pushed towards comedy, and I kept on like being like, no, I'm not meant to do that. And then finally I kind of took the leap. Really after college, I really started concentrating more on comedy, improv, and sketch. But I've only been doing stand-up for 3 years because again, for so long I was like, I'm not a stand-up comedian. And then, so yeah, a lot of it is just me being like, stop resisting things or putting these limitations on yourself, you know?
Yeah. And then also though, do you think that because like your bachelor degree experience, I think seems like all of us enjoyed our bachelor's experience, but less of a master's. Like, would you ever consider an MFA, or are you kind of like, no, bachelor's is enough?
Yeah, the bachelor's, and again, like I said, if it was free, like maybe, but at this point I don't really see a need for it. And again, the bachelor's for me, it was like a good lesson for me as far as life goes, and along with like learning, you know, things that I learned in college. Excuse me.
What do you guys think about this too? Like taking classes that are kind of entertainment based in colleges versus just doing it like at a UCB or like a Flappers kind of course. Like, do you actually feel like they're that much different? What do you guys think?
100%. I don't 100% regret going to college. I'm kind of feel the way you do about the MFA. Like I'm glad I did. I wouldn't be the person I am now if I didn't do it. But when I moved out here in 2017, I learned so much more than I did in college. I think just because it's location based. Like I would not have learned anything that I'm learning right now in Los Angeles pre-corona that I learned in Florida or Tennessee. For way less too.
And so you've only been in LA, what you said, 2017.
Yeah, it'll be my wow, I didn't even realize it, but I just hit my 4-year mark here.
Okay, so a lot of stuff can happen because me and Sophia, we've been here now over a decade. So I feel like I'm just guessing that Sophia also has some terrible Hollywood stories. So I wanted to ask you guys, what is the worst experience that you've had in Hollywood or even Hollywood adjacent, but what's your worst experience? And as you guys think about it, I'll share mine. So I one time went to this party and I networked with this guy. I'm even going to name his name because he was such a dick. He was the screenwriter for the big movie Salt with Angelina Jolie. And so at this party with him, and I talked to him for a while and he's giving me like advice and he was really nice at first. By the end of the conversation, he wanted to give me a note. And I was kind of like, oh, why is he giving me a note? We're just chatting, right? And he's like, can I give you a note? And I was like, sure, what? And he's like, you shouldn't smile so much because your face looks like a Chinaman cartoon when you smile. And I was like, what?
Oh my God.
I was just kind of like, I was like, oh, are you serious? And then he could tell, I don't know what reaction reaction he thought I would have if he thought I'd be like, thank you. But instead he could feel like the ice, you know? And so he's like, oh, I gotta go. And he like kind of ran away. And I told my friend, so my friend is a producer in China. And so that's why this Salt guy was there, because everyone's trying to network with Chinese money at the time. And I told my friend, I was like, that dude was such a douche and blah, blah. And my friend, this actually made me more mad than what the screenwriter said. My friend said, well, he's such a big guy in Hollywood, you should just take it.
No.
Oh.
I actually lost more respect for my friend, because like
Yeah.
I think there's shitty high rollers in Hollywood, but I was more upset with my friend just being like, eat it, you know? And so
yeah. When was this?
People, huh?
When was this?
This was a few years ago. So everything that, like, this is funny about stand-up is before stand-up, I seem to get treated way worse. And I don't know if maybe stand-up makes you just so much scarier because you're so much more confident. But people when I was pursuing just writing, I was treated really pretty terribly as a Hollywood writer. Like, I write for Hustler and they treat me so nice. Like, I've never been treated so nice, but as a Hollywood screenwriter, so bad. So many bad stories.
That's so crazy to me. And I'm very shocked by your friends to not also be like, yeah, he's a fucking dick.
Wow.
But that's the thing. And that is the thing in LA. The reason I asked you when is I feel like there also was a shift after like the Me Too movement where we were like, wait a minute, this is like everybody's getting treated like this. It's not just like an isolated incident. And that made it a little bit more not, because there can be a thing in LA where it's like, be nice to everybody, don't want to burn any bridges. And then there becomes a time where you're like, fuck it. No, I don't need your bridge. I'll find, the right bridge will come organically where I don't have to like lick your asshole or whatever. Ugh, that made me mad.
That is true. It was before the Me Too movement.
Yeah.
And, like, I even remember just like, I don't know if anyone is so bold to say things after like the Black Lives Matter movement or Me Too. I just feel like now everyone's scared because it's like everyone's getting out of it. For that, it was just buck wild time.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I have oh, go ahead.
Oh no, you can go.
I was gonna say I had two separate stories that I was gonna try to choose.
Let's hear them. Yes.
One. Okay. These and they're also like, okay. I'll do the one was I used to have this accountant that like I would go to him and he would always kind of like flirt with me, but also like he would give me pointers because at the time I was like trying to like claim all these deductions, but I also wasn't like making much money. So he's kind of like, he's like, you know what you need to do? Like this eye is a little bit smaller than the others, the guy. So you got to like, exercise this eye so that they're both the same. And he's like, stand up for me, stand up. You should stand up and twirl for me. Like it would be that. And because I was like younger, and again, this is pre-Me Too, I was just kind of like I would stand up and like twirl. And like there are all the other office people there, which were a lot of them were women, were not like, don't make her fucking do that. They were kind of like, ha ha ha, that's just Chuck, which I was like, I just feel like this wouldn't happen anywhere else besides Hollywood, because he started to give me advice on like why I wasn't working. Again, my like the eye thing or whatever he was saying, and how I need to be more confident, so I should stand up and twirl and I shouldn't be hesitant. Like it was very creepy.
Weird. And in front of people.
Yeah, it was like there was like an office with like a bunch of people at the same time doing their taxes. And it was just like kind of laughed off, like he was joking. Because that was the other thing, again, this was pre-Me Too, is you start to be like, if you are uncomfortable by something, you're like, oh, I must be like taking it too seriously, or I might be too sensitive. You take on the blame a little bit. Wow. And then you're like, afterwards, you're like, oh, it really was eye-opening around that time, or that whole movement was very eye-opening to be like, no, this is fucked up.
And I love that movement, but not only that, I do wonder as well is because people take advantage when you're in your 20s or younger, right? Because I think at a certain point, because I'm in my 30s now, where it's like, when people, I guess, even try to do it, I'm already like, haha, that already happened to me when I was 24. You get me a second time. And so I almost wonder if men can tell that you're not going to do it a second time, and then they leave you alone. But they always get you the first time and you don't know better.
Wow. Yeah. Crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. It was nuts.
That's literally a plot point to the movie Bombshell.
Yes. Oh my
God. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And that hasn't happened. That only happened. I feel bad. We're talking about Me Too and I'm cutting you off. So
no.
That happened to me in Miami. like right before I moved out to LA, I went to a Miami talent agency, and this guy was like, take off your shirt. And then he's like, how come your chest doesn't look like your arms?
I don't
And
understand. Those are different body parts.
exactly. Also, this guy had like a rockin' set of man boobs. So like the fact that he judged me and he's just like eating Carl's Jr. in his hand and he's telling me like how your chest needs to look like your arms. I didn't get any work or a call back, but I had to like take off the top half of my clothes.
Was
and
he legit, or do you think he was just like some low-level creep?
Well, okay, it's Miami, so they think they're legit, but they're actually low-level creeps. So
Wow.
it's because the film industry there runs on porn and cocaine, and
hell yeah.
yeah. But LA, I had a different experience. Like my shit show Hollywood Story was more personal because I just wasn't in the right group of people. I realized, and I hope I don't sound arrogant, but University of Miami had an LA program, and the guy running the program just didn't like me. He was a comedian. He did comedy for 10 years, and he knew I wanted to do comedy. And there was like this tension. Like he tried to, every chance I got alone with him to like get advice, like, should I do this on my internship? Should I do this on my thesis? And he's like, you're just too happy for your own damn good, and you need to stop it. And he ran the program.
Ew, oh, gross.
And also on top of that, I just had really shitty connections with people. And it's all about support. Like a comedy or anything is just all about how much support you have in your life.
Yeah.
It really impacts you. And thankfully, like I'm in a loving, awesome relationship. And I'm able to like thrive, and it's nuts. But moving my 2017 to 2019 was just all stumbling into shitty situations based off of who I was connected with in college. My ex at one point, I don't know if you're familiar with a comedy club called Marty's. It was in like Sunset Boulevard.
And they were like kind of like Super Blue, right?
Yeah, Super Blue.
Okay. Yeah.
I loved it. And I got upset when they shut down. And my ex was like, well, that's because stand-up comedy is dying.
Oh my God.
Cut forward to this year, every improv studio seems to be shutting down in Los Angeles, and everyone's getting a comedy special now. So I was just like, fuck, I don't know what I'm doing. And I just don't have support. I'm broke as fuck. So I was working overnight stock at Universal Studios for a while, and then I just became a bartender.
Okay.
And I was able to do that while like, make a little bit of money while getting fucked over by roommates. The classic Hollywood story. Yeah. Didn't work in a studio, but I lived with a ton of actors who gave up. And it's just, I'm glad that is over, but that made me who I am today. So like I had way more shittier personal Hollywood stories than like the average Los Angelino. I don't know, but I only had one bad experience in Hollywood so far, and I worked for a talent agency for 4 months.
Oh, okay. And was that positive, the talent agency?
No.
Okay.
Because they made me work the front desk. And they wanted me to see the writing on the wall because they had a big desk calendar. And in the middle of this desk calendar in big words was too many interns, ! And so a week later, they framed us one by one that we did terrible things to their clients. And I got let go.
Oh my God.
And I had to go back to get a letter that I completed my internship or I wasn't going to graduate. So the shittiest part of living in Los Angeles was because of my college program. But I apologize if that was long and extended, but
no.
Now that I'm going to clubs, the shittiest comic that I would run into at a club doesn't even compare to what I had to go through for somebody not in comedy.
That's funny because you know what? I had a similar experience. So I went to the USC program for screenwriting, and I had a similarly bad experience experience where they make everybody take a class like called directing for actors.
Yeah, I took that.
Oh, did you take that?
In Miami, they had that exact title. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but my teacher was super racist. She was like over 80s and like she would say the most racist thing. And like what's sad is like actors would come in and they would do a reading and then they would leave. And she would say something really god awful and racist about them after they left. And like the part though that annoyed me even more than just hearing that and like putting up with it, because the school's just like, isn't it so funny she's racist? And like for the minorities, we're like, no, but we had to sit there and take it.
Right.
But she had a scholarship where you got a full ride if you became her personal assistant. But because she's racist, only white people were eligible. And that scholarship tuition to USC is very, very expensive. Only white people, basically. They don't say it, but we all know implied only white people get this scholarship. So it was really annoying.
Wow.
And then a comment from the crowd. This is go back to you, Sophia. What a story about your twirl story.
I have so many more.
You had a second story. What was that?
Oh yeah, this one is more sad, but just I feel like it speaks on like the Hollywood douchebaggery that is here. That I feel like when you first move to LA, you're very much like Barney's Beanery and like all those like shitty places, and then you gradually like feel like, oh wait, there are other places besides this. But anyway, I went to one bar with a couple of friends of mine. Again, this was like around the time I first moved here. And my one friend was like super drunk. I'm like the type where I'm like, I can be drunk, but I still have like a good head on my shoulders. Actually, no, I wasn't even drunk this day. I lied. I was designated driver. And so these guys were like talking to my friend and she was drunk and it was time to go. So I, went up to her and I was like, okay, like, let's go. And the guys kept on like shoving me out, like getting in between me and my friend so that I couldn't talk to her because it's like one of their guys was like flirting with her. Like it was very creepy. And like finally we had another guy friend there with me. And I was like, okay, guys, I'm going to wait in the car because I'm not dealing with this guy. So I went in the car. And then when I come out, my two friends are bringing the guy friend out and the guy friend is bleeding because the dudes like bashed him in the head with a beer bottle because he was trying to tell my friend to leave. But I was like, this is only shit that would happen in LA because these fucking pop collar douchebags up in here, all these club promoters or whatever the fuck they are. Anyway, luckily like my friend was fine. Like he had to get some stitches, but otherwise he was fine. But it was like a nutty, crazy time.
That's scary. That's scary.
I know.
Because you never know really like when people are drunk what they could do, right?
Yeah.
It's like, you feel kind of invincible when you're drunk, but really it's like, no, someone could hit you with like like a bottle or like.
And also for like very small reason, like you're like, hey, we're leaving, and they're like, no, you're not. Like, what is his reasoning for hitting my friend in the butt? I know, it was nutty.
Oh my God.
That's scary. And then last week you shared this story, which we didn't get to talk about much, but like it really fascinated me that somebody asked you to change your race, right? To get like a TV writing job. Can you share that story again?
Yeah, it was like I had this opportunity to write for something, but because it was like a diversity thing, they were like, oh, can you like pretend you're Latina or like pretend you're Spanish or whatever to count as like diversity? Which I obviously was like, no, because I'm like wrong and no. But I think we were speaking out, it's just interesting. Like, I think also for this program, like, cause I am Greek, but that doesn't like count. So they're like, well, pretend you're something else that does count. It was just very like shady.
Yeah. And it's also weird, like what counts, right? Because when I think about you, I think she is Greek. Like, I feel like the culture. I feel like because you mentioned like your parents are immigrants, it's like, you're not just like saying, you know what I mean? You're part of the culture where it's like, why does that not count? But like when we mentioned like Hilaria Baldwin last week, is that Spanish counts? But it's like, that's also in Europe, but I don't know why. And like, even like with Greek culture, you guys do speak a different language, but people think only Spanish can count. It just is a very strange thing in the United States about race and like what they consider to be diverse. And because even when it comes to like Asian people, right? It's like, they'll consider an Asian person just if you like look Asian, but sometimes it's like some Asian people can pass for white, where they'll change their last name and like, let's say their family wasn't, as much in the culture as it was, but they just say, oh, well, I have some Asian blood in me and it counts. Where I'm like, well, now it's getting very confusing.
I mean, I knew somebody who, in this same thing, she was like 1/16 Native American, but she presented as just like blonde white girl. And I don't think she had any real ties to her Native American side. Like, it's just things like that where I'm like, I feel like that slot is better. If we're going to fill that diversity slot for Native American perspective, it should be somebody who presents that way and has that culture to be informed to talk about. Especially if you're talking about in a writing room, the reason you need diversity is because you want different perspectives. You know what I mean?
It's like the Elizabeth Warren factor, where like they used to like tout her like at whatever school she went to, and they'd be like Native American. But I'm like, if you're really just counting based on blood, it's kind of like it's a little confusing, because if it's just blood but not culture and stuff like that, is it not really fair to say someone like, you know, from the Greek culture? Or I have a friend and he is white and he looks white, but his family is from Poland. He can speak Polish and he goes there all the time, where it's like he does bring something different to the table, but they're like, oh, he's a white guy. So it gets kind of like confusing. And I guess, Michael, since you are a white guy, what are your thoughts on these diversity programs? I'm curious. I'm very open to like what to say.
I mean, I'm interested here, and I'm not like the afraid white guy where I feel like I'm walking on eggshells here, but I'll bring a little bit about me. My cousin, I'm pure white American. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it at all, but like my background, like third, fourth generation immigrants from like Ukraine and Germany, but I'm the whitest cousin that I have. Like my cousin is Ukrainian and Spanish from Spain. So he has that argument all the time too. And then my other cousin is Ukrainian she's German and Italian. So like she's a little olive skin, my cousin's a little olive skin, and I'm like blending into my wall back here almost. And I as far as diversity scholarships go, I don't apply to them. I just I don't know. Like I have hearing loss in my left ear and I'm left-handed. And I don't think that qualifies as diverse anymore.
I feel like that's like very like, not that you're saying this, but that's like the way that they would get more white guys to fill their diversity hires. They're like, he's left-handed, so that counts.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, I bring that up. I mean, I don't think I'm diverse because I'm left-handed or that, but it's like, you know, I'm happy, and I'm just gonna work on my own stuff, I guess. But we need more diverse voices out there.
Sure, I definitely think there's a problem in Hollywood. But the problem also, though, when they try to fill these slots, is that what they do is they fill the room with like the leader is a white guy, and then he calls all his friends, and maybe there's 2 slots for a minority that's like an obvious one, where if they took a picture that it's obvious, right? Like that's what they're trying to do, is to get rid of like haters saying something. But I think the problem is that if they pick you just because of your race, but they don't really want you there, then you're not going to thrive anyway. And so it's not really going to help your career in the long run. So it's kind of like, I get what they're trying to do, and I think the idea is nice, but I think the actual execution is just very uncomfortable for the minority involved. It's because you're like, okay, I'm here as a token and no one really treats me nice.
Yeah, but I do think that it is going, I hope, again, this is me leaning optimistic, but I do think it's kind of going in the right direction, where it is more like, you know, women majority writing rooms, and like, you know, people of color majority writing rooms. And that's reassuring, because there was that one thing. Did you ever watch that show? I think David Letterman had like a side show that I think it's called like My Next Guest Is.
Yeah.
And Tina Fey was on it. Yeah. And the thing that she was so smart that she said is because, you know, there's this whole thing like women aren't funny. And I'm like, bitch, yes, we are. It's just that when it's like one woman in a male white room, the humor maybe won't land as much because they don't relate to ours, you know, like, I mean, they can, some humor is just maybe universal, but we have different perspectives, and you kind of want, a bunch of women so that they can be like, yes, I know what you're referring to because I also am a woman, so I relate to this humor. You know what I mean? Like they just assumed that we weren't funny. And that's even speaks to, again, people of different races, different sexual orientations. Like that's the point of diversifying a writing room, is to provide different perspectives, you know?
Yeah. But I just think I was thinking I was an intern at the Letterman show like years and years ago. And I remember their writer's room, all men. And I
well, that's what he said. He was like, well, we didn't have women because we didn't think women wanted the job. And Tina Fey was like, we did, you know?
When I was there was one woman in the writer's room and she was fired in the few weeks that I was an intern there. Like, I remember seeing her cry. I wish I could actually remember who she was, but yeah, they got rid of her pretty fast, you know? And like, I remember thinking like, I mean, I don't know if the men were collectively douches or not, but I remember thinking I didn't like them. So I was just like, it's not a warm room to be in by any means. So I just kind of think that in general, like, I think the networks really could fix this, not by just inserting some diversity, maybe just giving diverse people, women, their own shows, and then let them see, you know, let that prosper instead of just trying to force people into a club that nobody wants to be in.
Yeah.
Because then that's just like checking a box and you're not really taking into consideration that how the whole needs to work, ideally, you know?
Yeah, like I don't know. And also like, when I was a finalist for all those diversity programs, I was always like, this is not going to work out. Like, you probably have a similar experience. Well, like, whenever I meet people, I was like, the people in charge of them didn't really seem like they were trying, but it seemed like this was not going to actually help anyone's career. It seemed like it was another checked box kind of situation where I was kind of like, I don't know. I just didn't think that they were really good programs either.
Agreed.
I've had many actor friends who've fallen into that. They're like, yeah, I got into the CBS entertainment venue, and it's in the I forgot what road it was. I haven't been in NoHo in a minute, but like off of Lancashire, that whole row of
for
theaters.
The CBS Diversity Showcase. Yeah.
And it's like, I got another one. Then I got another one. So I got another one. Really talented dude too.
Yeah, like a lot of people who do the diversity programs, you probably sometimes have to do like several before you really land. And then sometimes you land just because someone powerful helped you, not because of the diversity program. So, I mean, I remember it was like, I think Rachel Bloom, I think this was during the Me Too movement, but she kind of like called out how racist like one of the programs actually was, like the way they treated
the CBS Diversity Showcase.
Oh yeah,
and it was before. So I feel like it got better after because I did it a while ago. So it was after when she spoke on it, I was like, yep, that's all true. Because also like, and I did the showcase. I was a writer, not an actor. So really they only cared about the diversity for the actors. They didn't really care. And actually, technically as a writer, I was diverse because I'm a woman. But even for like the writers, it was a lot of straight white guys because they weren't really counting it. But they were like, yeah. But the shady thing, and I think even Rachel Bloom talked about this, that at that time, they were just like promoting more one-dimensional racist sketches, you know? They would say things like, oh, this girl's a maid. Why aren't we casting that Latina girl in this role? You know, or like, it was just a lot of that. Or like, oh, this guy is, you know, Israeli. We need to have him be like a terrorist, you know, something like it was just promoting stereotypes, which is ironic.
I think it's because the people in charge of those programs, like, I don't know if what's happened now, but my experience with them was years ago. So maybe there was a change or whatever, but like, usually the people in charge of those were like older white people in charge of the diversity program. So they were just trying to be woke, but they weren't actually woke people, where I'm like, you guys don't really know how to talk to non-white people. Like I did one diversity program. It was like a writer's program, and the woman could not tell me and the other two Asian women apart. She would like walk around the mixer and be like, did you write this? And they're like, no, I think you're looking for Teresa. And then she went to the next girl, and the other girl's like, I'm not Teresa. It was just really like, oh my God. Like, she wasn't trying to be hateful, but it's just more like, this is the stupidest thing. So
yeah, it's just like
no. I'm just like, I don't have a lot to bring to the diversity table other than I'm not going to step and be like, I'm a white guy and here's what you should know about diversity. That's I got books back here from the school ran by white people. But I have learned based on my own personal experience. I was growing up, you know, you have that really closed-minded, like white person view, not the racial kind, but just you only write what you know, and you're so closed off from other people's perspectives that when my friends became more diverse just by living in Miami and moving out to Los Angeles, Tennessee, not so much, but it's helped me. And Like my girlfriend, she's a wonderful journalist, and she's also a woman of color. And it's really, she's a writer too and has had things published many times. But it kind of helps me when I go full white about like, nobody else is going to get this. You need to dial this down. This is only for you and your buddies, Brad and Sean. Like, you're not, yeah, you need to change it up. So it does actually bring a lot of new and even better perspectives than you had in your head at the time.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Tyler in the crowd is saying, I hate when that happens. I think he's talking about when they tell us apart.
Oh, okay.
And I guess segging into the next thing let's talk about like celebrities that got canceled in 2020. So you all know that Ellen DeGeneres was canceled because of the toxic workplace culture, right? But even though she's canceled, her show is still back. I know the ratings aren't really there, but she was given basically a second chance. So my question to you guys is, did she deserve to be canceled? And do you think that she will come back? Start with Sophia.
I think I mentioned this on the last show where I was like, I might get hate for this, but I really am against cancel culture. I just feel like, of course, people need to be called the fuck out. And there's certain people that you can't come back from it. Harvey Weinstein, bye. But it's like some people, I think it's just gone too far where it's like this tweet from 10 years ago, canceled. And I just feel like it gives people like not the opportunity to grow. Yeah. So that's like my personal perspective. With Ellen, it was so heartbreaking because, I loved Ellen. She was like, I think when I was growing up, there weren't that many female stand-ups, at least featured, on TV and whatnot. So Ellen and like Wanda Sykes were like my two favorites. And then see her show, obviously before you move out to LA, especially, you just think she's that person, like that super nice, positive person. And then you move to LA and you start to hear a lot of people that work with her or have interacted with her and that she's like a terrible monster, which is like so sad to hear, but it's true, you guys. I'm sorry. It's too many people that I know that have worked for her and or like waited on her or whatever. So like, do I feel like she needs to be canceled? No. I mean, I just don't know if she can change at this point. It feels like she's who she is. So like, sure, they can give her another chance, but I feel like they should heavily monitor that work environment,
I agree. What about you, Michael? What do you think of Ellen?
Oh, Ellen. I loved growing up with her, but when I moved to LA, I was told almost immediately, like, look, if you're going to apply for a PA-ship, do not go to Ellen.
Oh,
wow.
Like, she will fire you if you make eye contact or if the mood is wrong in the room. Like, she is ruthless, and there's maybe a story with an animal shelter that's being disputed, like involving Ellen. Like that's the horrible things I heard. And like, I'll be all right. Like, she was one of the main two people that I was told never to work for in Hollywood. So as far as cancel culture goes, I don't think everybody's the same at like what level they get canceled. Like if you tweeted something, like I think I agree with you guys. If you tweeted something like 10 years ago, like honestly, like I'm 29 now, like I'm glad I wasn't involved in Twitter at 19. Just got a 19-year-old dude. It's like you guys were 19-year-old women. And, we're still teenagers. And you learn, you grow. You're like, I was a really dumb teen, but now I've matured. And you try to be a better person every day. But as far as the Weinstein guy goes, no, keep him canceled.
Well, it's like, that's what I mean. Like, there's like, people can be very black and white, and I'm like, there's a lot of gray, okay? There's like Weinstein, Bill Cosby, bye forever, obviously. But there's other people, but there's some people that like, I don't know, that I just feel like have learned since then, or like were made like an off-color tweet 10 years ago and they're like, I know that was really stupid of me, and people are still like, I know you should burn in hell. Like they just go too far with it, I think.
I agree too, where like I think it kind of comes down to how are they at the present, like if they seem like they're better, or at least they've stopped that behavior, even if they apologize and appear to have stopped that behavior, it's kind of like, okay, we kind of have to move on. You can't keep bringing up stuff from the past. But even with Ellen, though, like, I actually, like, when I was reading about this toxic environment, it didn't sound like she was doing as much as it sounded like the people underneath her were kind of doing it, where it's like maybe she didn't stop her underlings from creating this culture, but it sounds like she was just kind of isolated and didn't want anyone to talk to her. Like, I don't know if she was as direct in the abuse.
I was going to say, but also, and this is not to her work culture, but even this is what a monster I've heard she is. Like, there was a vegan place she used to go to, and she got somebody I know fired because they had like chipped nail polish, and they like so it's like stuff like that where she could have just let it go, but she went like out of her way to like contact the whatever owner and make sure. So that's the part where I'm like, no, but she's like a fucking monster.
Oh,
like
okay. So it wasn't just she keeps to herself. She actually goes out of her way.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that as much.
Yeah, she is aggressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tyler Tang is saying Alex Trebek's replacement, the guy quickly addressed his past tweets once he was announced, and people already want to cancel him. It's like everybody wants to get canceled, where it's kind of like, whatever, you just have to ignore it, you know?
Well, and that's, I mean, kind of, I feel like an old person being like, that's the generation, the Gen Z generation, where it can be very like, I guess in this like very black and white thinking. But I just don't think is true. And it's also like getting your feelings hurt so quick. It's like, bitch, you haven't even lived yet. Okay, don't even. Like, you need to have some humor in your life. Relax. I don't know. It's just too much. I don't even, who is the Alex Trebek replacement? Do we know?
Ken Jennings.
Yeah.
Like, Tyler, is it Ken? I'll wait for because there's a delay, so he'll probably write in a minute or so. But I think it is Ken Jennings.
Ken Jennings. Who's Ken Jennings?
Ken Jennings, he was like, I think the guy who won like a huge payday. I think he was on Jeopardy several days and kept winning, and so I think he's the new replacement.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it's interesting.
And he was forthright about the tweet. Sorry, I'm asking.
I guess he's. Yeah. I don't even know what his tweets were, but people dug them up because it's like what you guys were talking about. It's like people digging up tweets from 10 years ago, and even if even if they were offensive, if they're so old and you're not like that anymore, it's just like. Certain point, like who cares? I'm in the same boat where I'm like, I don't really care. Like I just I'll ignore people maybe, but I don't really care. I don't know.
Yeah.
But sorry. But the Ellen thing's interesting to me that she goes out of her way to be a monster. I didn't know it was that level of crazy. But then that also makes you wonder too. The real way to cancel her is just like, if you know she's a monster, ignore her. Like monsters, like basically narcissists, if they're not getting their narcissistic supply, like they go nuts. Versus if you actually engage with them and they have power over you, it's like she'll love it.
So basically she's Pennywise from It. I don't believe in you anymore, Ellen. You can't scare me.
Because it's like, because she did kind of do like major things for female comedians, she definitely opened a lot of doors. So I don't know, but but I think that goes back to, I don't really want to meet my idols. Like, I feel like I've met some of my idols in the past, and once I met them, I was like, never again. I actually kind of believe in this new philosophy where I want to keep my professional and friend group small, and I don't really want to reach for these other people, because sometimes you meet them, you find out they're terrible. It just like ruins your experience. I'd rather just a small group where we're all a community.
I mean, I was thinking, like, even, I don't know why this is bringing this up, but I was thinking about getting a tattoo once of a certain idol of mine that I've since heard like some shit on, and I'm like, oh, and this is why I wouldn't get a tattoo, because of somebody who I like really love. Because then I also think like I used to love Bill Cosby growing up, but I had no idea all this stuff going on. Can you imagine if I had a Bill Cosby tattoo? And I'm sure people do.
Oh my God, that would be.
I know.
That would be the worst.
But I don't know why I brought up like tattoos, but that's how I don't know, appreciate my idols.
But that goes to show you, you don't want to invest too much, because once you finally meet them, you're like, maybe not,
Yeah.
And that kind of goes to the next person who's being canceled, but should they be canceled, is J.K. Rowling. And we know she was canceled for her anti-trans comments. But it's like recently Eddie Izzard defended her, and then some people like defended her as well when she made those tweets. So I guess my question to you guys is, should J.K. Rowling be canceled, and do you think she'll have a comeback?
I don't know who's going first. I think she should, because I don't fully know the whole story with J.K. Rowling, but from what I understand, it seemed like she was writing very transphobic stuff. And then she never really like apologized about them or even explained her perspective if she didn't feel like they were transphobic. She just seemed to kind of write it off and never really address it, and was very like dismissive. And to me, that makes me feel like she's transphobic because she's not like, oh, yeah. And I understand, again, like we said, the cancel culture, but I also do think you have to like own up to it or at least explain that perspective to some extent. And to my knowledge, I don't think she has.
Yeah, I am sorry for the delay. I was trying to figure out how Michael Damian won't get canceled. But I worked at Universal Studios in the Harry Potter theme park. That was like my first job moving here, and people were obsessed with her, and it was heartbreaking to see how many fans like she ruined who were stuck having to go to this place just to get minimum wage every day. But if you look back at her writing, at J.K. Rowling's writing, there's other things to kind of hint that she was a hateful person. Like, there's a part in the third book, the third book where there's a professor trying to get a young boy to live up to his fears. And it's his it's his potions teacher in drag as a woman, and everybody's laughing until he like casts a spell and she's like locked back in her closet. Like stuff that's like on the level of, oh, Louis C.K. masturbated in front of people. Well, he's been talking about it. And then J.K. Rowling did that. And also all the bad people in her book are French. So it's like she's not a pleasant person, like Voldemort. Then we have the Malfoys, and then we have like
French. Is that what you said?
Yeah, their last names are all French last names. So like,
she hate French people?
I'm pretty sure she does. Because
I never thought of that.
Yeah, because UK and France have like a history for several centuries, and so all the people in Slytherin are French, or the evil house for all the non-nerds out there. And then there's only like one. There's like one Asian love interest, and her name is Cho Chang. And so she's not really open to like people of other backgrounds if you go back and read that book. And also, one of the main bad guys, the bad guys are deformed. There's literally a guy missing a finger. She's not, for a person who has confused the public up until now, she's done a great job confusing the public, is what I want to say. Because she's like, oh, we're all like, we can be accepted. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. Harry Potter's all about love and compassion. And I'm glad it finally came out that, yeah, J.K. Rowling doesn't like French people. She doesn't like trans people or people with disabilities, because they're all portrayed in weird ways.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I'm not trying to defend J.K. Rowling's statements, but I do think that people love the book so much that they're never going to cancel the book. So like, let's say, for instance, if people hate her or whatever, because like, for instance, Roald Dahl was a very like racist person. But
and also like musicians too, if you think about it, like, Michael Jackson, his fucking music's fire. And like, is a great and like, there's a lot of great musicians that like beat their wives, and like, there's just like, it's that nuanced thing where you're like, yeah, you turned out to be a terrible person, but your art is great.
That's why I think I almost think she almost has immunity, where no matter how terrible she is or how much people hate her, people will still like her books. Yeah. And maybe a new book comes along.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I feel like her Harry Potter books will probably always be there, because regardless of her, like, I do feel like they do have like a very inspiring message. I don't personally see all the negative stuff you had mentioned in there. I don't know. Maybe I have to look into that more, but it feels a little bit like a reach.
I lived in the theme park because I had to work there all the time, so I know way too much about Harry Potter. So it's be fine.
Yeah.
That's an interesting dissection of it, because I never thought about that. Like, what if she was secretly like, oh, I hate this person? Although I disagree with the Cho Chang thing, because I know a lot of Asian people like were upset that the person's name was Cho Chang, but it's like a lot of Asian people do keep a first name that's similar to that. They don't anglicize their first. So it's that weird thing where it's like, wait, you wanted her to anglicize the first name, or you don't want her to anglicize? It's kind of like, we can't have it both ways. You can't be angry that she made it like Margaret Cho.
No.
But it's like, but it's like, you can't be mad that she made it an Asian.
Oh yeah, no, she's like, but one of the only few in the whole castle, in the whole United Kingdom.
Yeah.
And like, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Well, we actually have hit the hour, which is amazing.
Woo!
So it really flew by. This was
I
really
know.
cool. Talking to other writers, and especially our horror stories. I feel like we could have went on and on.
Yeah,
yeah.
totally.
Another show, right? So we'll start with Sophia. Where can people find you?
You can find me at Sophia Zolan. I'm most active really on Instagram. And then I recently kind of started a TikTok, but I've done like 3 videos, whatever. I have like 30 followers. So if you want to follow me there, that's cool too.
Okay, awesome. What about you, Michael? Where can people find you?
I'm predominantly on Instagram at Michael Damian _comic and Michael Damian on Facebook. I also do a mic every Thursday, Jokes and Smoke Zoom mic. It's a fun, friendly mic. Anybody from any comedic background can come hang out, tell jokes, and get drunk or high or sober.
Oh, that sounds fun. I should check out your mic. That sounds really fun, actually. So Thursdays, what time?
7 p.m. Pacific time.
Sounds good. Okay, I will be there. Well, thank you guys also for being on the show, and thank you to the audience for tuning in. We are here every Monday through Thursday at 3 p.m. Pacific time.